So, NBA All-Star Weekend, huh? It was something. It was something. Honestly, if I'm being fair, I think this past weekend, last night's games and the dunk contest, 3-point contest, this whole weekend was better than it's been the past 2 to 3 years, I'd say. But was it good? I don't really think so. I think there was some redeeming qualities, and I do think a lot of the issue with this weekend's All-Star game wasn't the players, but the fans. Now, the reason I say that is, I'm going to get into that a little bit later, because I want that to be the end, because there's actually quite a few things I have to say about that. I was not really looking forward to the All-Star Weekend. I haven't in the past couple years. It doesn't really have the allure it had growing up. And I think a lot of it growing up was just, I was excited to watch all the best players, the 24 best players in the NBA share the court together. They team up, they play against each other. You know, you had the 3-point contest, you had the dunk contest, you had the skills challenge. Like, it was just a lot of fun for a young kid to see the best players in the world play against each other, like, all at the same time. You know what I mean? And I think part of the reason why the All-Star break loses its allure each year is you get older and you kind of you lose out on that fantasy aspect, because I'm sure there's kids nowadays that still really, really love the NBA All-Star game. And this goes for anything. This goes for the Pro Bowl and the NFL, the All-Star games for the MLB, NHL. I'm not as in tune with the latter, like the MLB and the NHL. I don't really keep up with those sports, so maybe their All-Star games are better. I don't know, you know what I mean? If they're doing what they want to be doing over there, if they're doing it well, then more power to them. But I can speak for the Pro Bowl and the NFL and the NBA All-Star Weekend to say that it has just been bad for a while now. And I'm not even going to get into the NFL today, because it's not what this channel is about. This is strictly the NBA All-Star Weekend. It starts on Friday night. They have like the celebrity game. Didn't really care to watch that. I like Drewski, funny guy, but wasn't very good. Kai Snet, I like watching his streams. Like, I don't really watch his streams, but like, you know, I'll see clips of him and stuff like that. Was not very good. Like, it just, like, shout out to the guys' numbers on the boards. They had their thing, like, before the game, like, their half-hour stream or whatever it was. I tuned into that because those guys are funny, and, like, I just love those guys and their content they make. But, like, when it came to the game itself, didn't really care. Skills challenge, it is what it is. I know there's that clip of Chris Paul and Victor Wembanyama getting disqualified because they were just kind of chucking up shots instead of taking the threes. You know, we all saw the clip. It is what it is. Yeah, shout out to them. The 3-point contest and the dunk contest, I think, is where All-Star Weekend started heating up. That was on Saturday. So, Saturday, as you know, Tyler Hero won the 3-point contest. It was a good, like, I think, Buddy Hield had 31 in the first round. Like, it was decently exciting. I think if you objectively just watch the 3-point contest, I think it was objectively exciting, but definitely the big thing of the night was the dunk contest. And I know a lot of people for years now have just been shitting all over the dunk contest. It's like, listen, it hasn't been good since 2016, the Zach LaVine, Aaron Gordon. And that means we know that it was a great dunk contest. But I do think people are getting a little bit too crazy on how bad like, I think this was actually a pretty good dunk contest. Now, Andre Jackson Jr. and Modest Buzelis didn't really show up, give us much of anything. But Matt McClung, who won it for his 3rd straight year, and Stefan Castle put on a show. And I think that the fact that there's a debate of who won shows that, okay, it was a good competition. Again, it was really only out of two out of the 4 players. I can get that. But the fact that a lot of people think, or not to say a lot of people, there's a good amount of people that think Stefan Castle should have won, I think is fantastic. Matt McClung won. He jumped over a car.
Catch it first.
And this isn't no Blake Griffin jumping over the hood of the car. No, he cleared the car. I guess his foot caught it on the way down, but he jumped over a damn car, okay? He was great. It came out in round 1, which is actually kind of crazy. I didn't think he'd do that round 1, but I think that dunk, like, pre-solidified he was going to win. You know what I'm saying? Like, he jumped over that car. There was no way they weren't going to have Mac McClung win, and he had good other dunks as well. Stefan Castle had also great dunks. Genuinely, I think in most other years, Stefan Castle probably takes home the victory, but Matt McClung was just on a different level this year. Again, the Kia jump, like the jump over the Kia, he wasn't going to beat that. There really wasn't much he could have done to beat that. Shout out Stefan Castle. I hope these guys come back next year. I know there's a whole thing about why is Mac McClung in it? He's a G League player, not an NBA player. I do kind of have an issue that they kind of only parade him around during the All-Star break. I don't blame him for that. I have no issues with Mac McClung. Shout out Mac McClung for winning it. But like it does kind of bother me that it's like, I saw a stat, and again, if I'm wrong, if this stat was not true, trust me, prove me wrong in the comments, but that he's made more money winning the 3 slam dunk contests, and he has an NBA contract. He's a G League player. And it kind of just bothers me that, like, he's almost being used as, like, a one-trick pony. Like, oh, we're the Magic are, like, we're going to bring him up for All-Star Weekend. He's gonna win the dunk contest, and we're just going to send him back down to G League. I know he played a game earlier this season, but, like, still, you get what I mean? But shout out Mac McClung, shout out Tyler Hero. I thought, for what it was, I thought the contests were fun. I enjoyed watching. It's never going to be anything crazy anymore. Well, I can't say that, because some of the dunks we saw were pretty crazy. But for what it was, I think it was really, really exciting, and I think part of that goes into what I was saying earlier about the fans. Listen, I feel like multiple times during the dunk contest, whether it was on Twitter, which is a whole nother issue, or the commentating, or like just people around the sport, you do a dunk, you're like, oh, we've seen something like that before. I feel like we're at the point where a lot of dunks have been done already, so it's going to be really, really hard for these guys to do something new, and people are so quick to go into this All-Star Weekend with a negative view, and you see something that's kind of similar to something that happened 2 years ago. Oh, I've seen that before. You get a lower score. But again, I'm gonna get into that a little bit later. The All-Star games, there was multiple games. New format this year. You know, Adam Silver said he got with Steph Curry because obviously the games were in San Francisco, Oakland. Like, you know, he was the home. You know, they were hosting. You know what I'm saying? And that they were gonna try something new this year, and that there was 4 teams, and one of them was like 3 like the actual All-Star teams, and then a rising star. And I think right off the bat, it had a horrible PR start when LeBron James and Kevin Durant both came out right away and was like, oh, this kind of stinks. Okay, right out the gate, boom, hits a major roadblock. How much do you value their opinions if you're a casual fan? Probably a lot, right? I think if people that are like watching this video and like watch the NBA on at least consistent basis, if LeBron James and Kevin Durant say that they don't like the All-Star game format, yeah, it is what it is. You know, you might agree, you might disagree, but you're probably gonna watch it regardless. But a casual fan, and let me tell you, the NBA All-Star Weekend is for the casual fans. The Super Bowl was a couple weeks ago. This is the time for the NBA to get the casual fans back into the NBA to finish out the season. These casual fans, they go online and they see LeBron James, Kevin Durant say, this is gonna suck. They're gonna go into the night with the preconceived notion of, oh, this is gonna suck, and then they're going to turn on the TNT broadcast, and they're going to hear Draymond Green shit on it for an hour before it even happens. I mean, literally constantly, honestly, all the guys up there on TNT, TNT has not been very good. Those guys have not been very good for a couple of years now, but that's a whole nother conversation to have. They were just constantly shitting on these format, on the players, for an hour pregame before this shit started. And then we get to the actual, like, the games are happening, the entertainment's happening. It's Kevin Hart out there. And listen, I am a big Kevin Hart fan. I think it was just not a good showing for him. I don't know if it was restrictions on what he could say. He just didn't have good material that night. He couldn't really riff off of Shaq, Kenny, Erden. I don't know what it was. I feel like this was one of the weaker Kevin Hart performances I've seen. And I mean, that sucks as a fan of Kevin Hart. I don't know how much of it I put on him because, again, we don't really know his restrictions or what he could say, what he couldn't say. Just objectively, I didn't think it was a great show from Kevin Hart. Again, Draymond Green was just shit talking the entire time. They brought Mr. Beast out at halftime to do that $100,000 thing, and I mean, shout out that guy that won it. He beat Dame in the shootout. He had to make 1 before Dame made 3. Won $100,000. Shout out him. Apparently, there was a story that like he got tickets last minute, so he didn't even know he was going to be there up until just recently. So that's crazy that you don't even know if you're going to go to the All-Star game. You get tickets and you get on the court. You get to have a shootout with Damian Lillard, and again, you beat him. And I'm going to keep putting that in quotes because I don't think, not that Dame wasn't trying, but I think Dame was going to do whatever he could to try and take as long as he had to make that last shot so that the guy could make the shot. But again, I think it's just Damian Lillard saying, hey, this fan deserves $100,000 because what the hell is Damian Lillard? You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. But still, he got the money. It felt weird. It just felt like there's certain spots where Mr. Beast just kind of pops up that it's like, oh, okay, I don't know why he's here. And this just felt like one of those things. Like, there has been a lot of talk this season that Adam Silver has been trying to talk to these players that we have to take this NBA All-Star game more seriously. It's just not been good the past couple years. We got to take it more seriously. But then you say that, and you have Draymond Green shitting on it for an hour beforehand. You have Kevin Hart coming out and making fun of these players while they're standing there, and it's like anytime they pan to a player, they didn't look like they were really laughing or enjoying most of it. Like, it just they have Mr. Beast coming at halftime. It's like they wanted, Adam Silver's like, I want you guys to take this seriously, but we're going to surround the entire event with the most ridiculous shit we can possibly find. It's like, at what point in time do we have to look at Adam Silver and say, listen, bro, you either got to cut out a lot of this extra shit, or you got to just let these players not care, because trying to do both at the same time isn't going to work. Now, again, I made a comment at the start of the video. This NBA All-Star Weekend, of course, the players still didn't have a lot of fire under them. LeBron James decides to sit out last minute, which was kind of weird. You know what I mean? I have my own things about that. But it just kind of, like, it had a little bit more feel. I think having that cutoff score definitely makes a difference. Because remember in 2020 in Chicago, they had the cutoff score, and that was actually one of the better All-Star games in recent times. I do like the idea of a cutoff score. It being 40 is kind of weird. I mean, I guess for the first two games, like the semifinal games, if you want to be 40, okay. But I think 40 is a really, really low number for the actual All-Star game. You know, I don't know if maybe a time limit's better. Like you play 20 minutes, you have like 2 10-minute quarters, and then you make a cutoff, like kind of like how they used to do, like, say, okay, you have 10 minutes, you have like a little break for them to do whatever Mr. Beast's halftime festivities they want to do. You have another 10 minutes after that, and then when that 10 minutes is done, you say the game is at, like, I don't know, 72 to 68, right? And you say, okay, hard cutoff is 90. So, okay, now you have untimed, whoever can get to 90 first. I think you're going to see a little bit more players locked in. Again, players aren't going to fully lock in because they just, at the end of the day, they don't really care. But I do think the elim ending is a good idea to at least make it a little bit more competitive. It's just 40 was way too low of a score. Again, it was what it was. There was a little bit of trying, like a little bit more trying this year, but still wasn't a lot. But I do want to talk about the fans, because that's what I said earlier. The fans, I think, were the biggest issue at All-Star Weekend. And not the fans in attendance, because it seemed like if you're in attendance for these games, it seems like you're usually having fun. I'm talking about people online, people on Twitter. Twitter is not a real place, and I've said this for a long time, and I'll always say it. People get on Twitter, they make these profiles, they make a idolized version of themselves on these profiles, they make a version of them that they want you to see. They want you to see this version of it. Like, you guys that watch me, you only know me from what I show you on video. You guys don't know me in real life, except for a few of you that I do know. But, like, if you were walking, like, if any of you saw me in the street, walked up to me, hey, like, how you doing? You wouldn't even know, like, what I like to do. You know I like basketball, okay? But you don't know anything about me. And it comes to the same way of Twitter, is that I can put on a face and say whatever the hell I want because I'm on the internet and I'm hiding behind like an avatar. It's not me. And again, my Twitter, I think my profile picture is of my YouTube logo. But like, you can come to my channel and see what I look like. I'm not hiding behind anything. I just use it so that way people will be like, oh, that's Cloud2K. You can go to logo. You can find it on YouTube. It's the same. You know what I mean? You get what I'm saying. And on TikTok as well. People were going into this All-Star Weekend thinking in their head, they already had it in their head that this was going to be bad, and there was nothing that could change their mind. And that is the difference. I went into this All-Star Weekend knowing that, listen, it hasn't been very good in quite a while, so I'm not expecting much out of it, but I go in with the open mind of, if this is a good All-Star Weekend, I'm going to be pleasantly surprised, and I'm going to accept it. I'm not going to look for every opportunity to shut it down. Again, the three-point contest, I found myself enjoying it. The dunk contest, I found myself enjoying it. Even a couple of moments of the All-Star games, I found myself enjoying it because I wasn't going to just shut down everything. But there's literally a huge section of NBA Twitter that no matter what the NBA does, will just not be happy. They will always say, oh, well, this isn't like the early 2000s. Let me tell you a newsflash. I probably like mid to late 2000s is when I started watching basketball. Like, that's when I got old enough to really understand. The All-Star games, you guys, like, it wasn't that crazy back then. Defense wasn't getting played that hard. Were they trying more than they are nowadays? Sure. Okay, I'll give you that. But some of the nostalgia factor you guys have for this NBA All-Star games it's nostalgia. You guys are a bit overrating what it actually was. You can go back and watch those games and you say, yeah, they might stand in front of their guys a little bit better on defense, but guys were going to drive to the rim and they're just kind of, they might put a hand up, but it's not going to be anything crazy. The NBA All-Star Weekend has always been a time for players to have fun on the court and never to really try 100% of the time. So I think nostalgia factor has killed a lot of you guys because you always want to compare it to what it was when you were younger. And of course, just like every other human, nothing nowadays is ever going to compare to how it was when you were a kid. We see all the time, things aren't made how they used to be. Video games aren't the same as they used to be. Movies aren't the same as they used to be. TV shows aren't the same as they used to be. Toys that are made aren't the same. Like, whatever it is, you've probably heard somebody say, this isn't as good as it was when I was a kid. And is there some objective facts to that? I'm sure there are. I'm sure you can find the data to back up some of that stuff. But probably 75 to 80% of that is pure nostalgia because you're thinking about the best versions. When you think back to your childhood, when you think back to your younger days, you're thinking of the best version of things. You tend to block out the bad parts. So yeah, you're going to remember people doing crazy windmill dunks in the All-Star game. You remember people getting a crazy chase down block in the All-Star game, but you're going to forget the 4 straight possessions of somebody just kind of letting somebody drive to the paint. Because you remember that idolized version of it. And I'm not trying to get super deep on this. I'm just saying, like, the NBA All-Star game is never going to get better if nobody wants it to get better. And it feels like nobody wants it to get better. They want it to go back how it was, but that version of what it was not as good as you're remembering it being. Does that make sense? Again, I would love for improvement on the All-Star game. But we need to be able to accept things need to change. Things have to change. Things are going to change. And this All-Star format, while I don't like it, it was an attempt at a change by Adam Silver and the NBA to say, listen, what we've been doing for the past couple years isn't really working. Let's try something new. And I can appreciate that. That speaks to me as, okay, we're seeing you guys don't like this, so let's try something different. Does it work? This year, not really. Maybe next year they come back in a different refined role and it's better. It's going to take a while of the NBA finding what it is. But the problem is, no matter what they do, there's a good chunk of the internet that is going to just hate it no matter what. And until that stops, which it never will, we're never going to look at the All-Star game the same way we used to growing up.